I got home at midnight, like I always do, keys jangling in my pocket, expecting the quiet hum of my apartment and maybe the soft glow of the TV she always left on. But something was off. The door was ajar. My heart thumped in a way that made me drop my bag. The faint scent of her perfume, too familiar, too sharp, hit me first. And then I saw them. My parents, standing in my living room like they owned the place. Behind them, my wife stood frozen, her eyes wide, clutching a thick manila folder. What? How did you? I stammered, my voice cracking in disbelief. No answer. My father just slammed the folder onto the coffee table, the thud echoing through my chest. My mother's lips pressed thin, her eyes cold. And my sister, she looked like she was performing, every movement calculated. We need to talk about what you owe us, my father said. Oh, us? I blinked, trying to understand, but my brain refused. I reached for my phone instinctively, checking messages, calls, anything. Nothing. Silence. But the tension was deafening. I opened the folder. It wasn't a bill for rent or a contract I'd forgotten. It was worse. A spreadsheet. Detailed. Every expense of my upbringing, meticulously catalogued. Diapers, food, clothes, dental visits, even a line for emotional labor at $20 an hour. The final sum glared up at me from the page. $500,000. $500,000. Your success isn't yours, my father said calmly, like he was explaining the weather. It's an investment we made. And now it's time to pay dividends. I laughed, low, incredulous, hollow. You, what? Are you serious? Deadly serious, my mother said, her voice trembling just enough to sound like hurt instead of greed. We sacrificed for you. We deserve this. You owe us. I stood there, frozen, staring at the paper as if it would spontaneously combust. And then, I felt it. A cold, hollow anger that replaced the disbelief. They weren't parents asking, they were creditors, predators dressed in familiar faces. It hit me slowly, like the realization of a nightmare I couldn't wake from. Every memory that once felt warm now felt like a setup. The nights she stayed late at work with clients, the whispered phone calls she denied, the odd messages she hurriedly closed whenever I approached. The subtle betrayals I chalked up to stress, the unexplained gaps in her day, the evasive smile when I asked where she'd been. Now they weren't small oddities. They were threads in a tapestry I didn't want to see. I remembered the missed call from last week. One single notification, gone before I could answer. A text I thought she had sent from work, but the phrasing was wrong. My mind raced. Did she know? Did she orchestrate this? The folder's weight in my hands felt like it carried the weight of my entire life. I tried to speak, but my voice failed me. Open it, my mother urged. I flipped to the first page. Everything I'd ever thought of as normal. The small gestures, the family support, the smiles, the vacations, was reduced to a ledger. I wasn't a son. I wasn't a husband. I was a commodity, an asset. You want $500,000? I asked, my voice low, disbelief still tangled with rage. It's fair, my mother insisted. We sacrificed for you. And you have more than enough now. Why are you so greedy? And then I noticed it. The way my wife shifted slightly, her hands tightening around her phone in her pocket. The way her eyes avoided mine. A tiny detail, but enough to make my chest tighten with betrayal I hadn't yet named. It all came together in a terrifying clarity. My life, my work, my love, they had plotted against me. And she, my wife, the person I trusted to be my partner, my confidant, had been complicit. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just closed the folder. No, I said simply. The word echoed louder than any shout could. I'm not paying. Leave. They didn't. My father's face darkened. My mother gasped. My sister sneered. My wife, she finally spoke. It's not just about the money, she whispered. It's the principle. You used us. You built this behind our backs. We trusted you, and you lied. Her words cut deeper than the spreadsheet. The realization settled like ice in my veins. I had been living a half-life, believing in loyalty and love, while everything I held sacred was being weaponized against me. I moved toward the door, feeling the solidity of my keys in my hand. "Then this is where we end," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I don't owe you my past. I don't owe you my future. Get out." The police were called, but it wasn't about them. It was about me. About reclaiming a life that had been quietly stolen piece by piece. The aftermath was surreal. My bank accounts were frozen. My business launch teetered on the brink of collapse. My wife's messages alternated between guilt and justification. And the world, social media, mutual friends, watched like spectators at a gladiator arena. But I found clarity in the chaos. Each step I took to untangle their hold was deliberate. I hired a lawyer, audited every account, traced every document, every transaction. What they thought was my weakness, the spreadsheet, the ledger, the meticulous calculations, became my weapon. In court, my father's obsession with detail backfired. Every line of the spreadsheet, every carefully calculated expense, exposed them, not me. Taxes unreported, misappropriated funds, hidden assets. They had turned their greed into my evidence. The judge's gavel struck like a bell of freedom. Case dismissed. Criminal referrals made. My life unfrozen. I walked out of that courthouse and saw them, defeated, terrified, scrambling for control that was no longer theirs. My wife stood silently beside me. She didn't reach for my hand. She didn't try to justify herself. She just existed in the space between our old life and the one I was reclaiming. I realized then that love, real love, couldn't coexist with betrayal of this magnitude. And respect, self-respect, wasn't something you begged for. You enforced it. I left them behind. I drove through the city streets, rain dripping off the windshield, neon reflections scattering across the asphalt. I thought of the years I had spent trusting, hoping, and the hours I had spent rebuilding quietly, invisibly. All that work, all that patience, was mine, not theirs. When I finally returned home, I stood in my apartment, lights off, quiet except for the hum of the city below. I picked up my phone and deleted their numbers. Every message, every contact, every digital tether severed. I wasn't numb. I was awake. Pain had been replaced with clarity. Heartbreak had been replaced with control. And betrayal had been replaced with hard-earned strength. Life wouldn't be easy from here. It never is after a storm this violent. But as I opened my laptop, checked my business dashboard, and watched orders roll in for my next launch, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a quiet, fierce pride. I had been broken, deceived, used. But I was standing, whole, strong, in control. And no ledger, no spreadsheet, no betrayal could ever take that from me. Sometimes the people you love the most become the ones you have to protect yourself from. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to finally walk away. I did. And I never looked back.